Good morning, everybody. Truly an honor to be here with you this morning. So much gratitude that you're here. I know I saw the moon this morning, even so up bright and early. So again, an honor to be here this morning. I will be speaking to Proverbs 16 to 17 today. And this summer I was pleasantly gifted with a new Bible, so I'm going to be reading from the New International Version. So before getting started, I would like to start with a prayer. So you can take that prayer position, bow your heads, and yeah, we'll say a prayer together. Oh, Creator, we are grateful to you for this opportunity, for this gift to study your word together. Help us to remain open to your word and to be able to see the messages that you are speaking to our hearts. Amen. All right. So I admit when I was preparing for this lesson and even just going through Proverbs, I was feeling a little bit of guilt and shame. I'm not sure if Pat is on the call. I think it was Pat who had said last week, just when reading some of Proverbs, he went kind of like, duh, yeah, it's obvious. Some of the lessons that we are getting through Proverbs, sometimes it feels like common sense, like things that we've heard. So I found myself struggling a little bit, kind of thinking about the past, wondering, okay, I wish I had applied some of these lessons a little bit more in the past. So, this reflection drew me to a video on the Bible Project titled Do Not Judge, and it highlighted Matthew's chapter 7, verse 1 to 4. It was part of that famous Sermon on the Mount. So, I'll read those verses first and then make that connection. So, Matthew chapter 7, verse 1 to 4. Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there's a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. So, at that point, Jesus was just encouraging others not to judge and really wanted to highlight that part. And strangely enough, reflection brought some comfort to me, and I wasn't as hard on myself. In order to grow in the spirit, we are encouraged not to harshly criticize others and to really self reflect and look at ourselves. We're encouraged on focusing on removing that speck from our own eye to confront our own challenges and failures. So there's no need to feel ashamed of the past or our own personal failures. They're opportunities for growth. So taking that speck out of our own eye, looking at our challenges, to recognize God and increase our awareness and spiritual growth. So I just thought I'd put that out there. If you had a similar experience as I did and found yourself maybe judging yourself in, if that critical voice was coming into your mind, uh, to try something. To try something here this morning. Try placing emphasis today on non judgment, not judging ourselves, and focus on self reflection. And when we share stories, like we often do in H.E.A.R.T, we look to learn from each other's experiences, removing that speck from our own eyes so we can grow and then be more supportive of others when they need guidance. All right, so let's tap into the reading here this morning. So Proverbs, starting with Proverbs chapter 16. So I'll read over you for a few verses here. To man belong the plans of the heart, but from the Lord comes the reply of the tongue. All a man's ways seem innocent to him, but motives are made by the Lord. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and your plans will succeed. The Lord has everything for his own ends, even the wicked for a day of disaster. The Lord detests all the proud of heart. Be sure of this, they will not go unpunished. Through love and faithfulness, sin is atoned for. Through the fear of the Lord, a man avoids evil. So interestingly enough, when I went through that part, that's up to verse 6, 1 to 6, I actually thought of a friend of mine from a few years back. In her mid 30s, she decided to go back to school, and she had a lot of success in school and eventually earned her law degree. So her journey back to school was filled with both surprises and blessings. So when we had the chance to have a conversation, she at that point we were talking, she had to choose which area of law she was going to specialize. So one of the things that actually shocked her was that she learned the ability to sound right. She learned how to debate and build a very strong case, or I should say arguments, to support her ideas and plans. Even when she had no knowledge of a topic or idea, she learned how to sound right and convince others that she was also right. She also learned that if there was fault or blame, that somehow she wasn't responsible for that, for whatever was wrong. So this new skill baffled her. Uh, she was able to convince others that she sounded right, that it felt right, and yet still struggled to figure out what exactly she wanted to do with her degree. So, this scripture, it's a reminder that ultimately it's God who assesses our motives and determines the outcome of our plans. So we have that ability to think, we have free will, we can make choices, and it's possible to develop very sophisticated stories about our ideas or our plans. And we can even convince ourselves that we're right and others that we're right. So even with a law degree, it can feel so good to be right and to say yes. That's my story makes sense. It's very convincing. So it's just a reminder that even though we have that ability to make choices and we have free will, God has sovereignty, and it's God who actually has the final say in the outcome. So if our plans are grounded in God, we will be successful. And just kind of aside, my friend eventually decided to go where God led her. She focused on human rights and she did a lot of volunteer work. So when our hearts are rooted in God's ways and words, we can be reassured. So I'll go back to verse 7 in chapter 16. When a man's ways are pleasing to the Lord, he makes even his enemies live at peace with him. Better a little with righteousness than much gain with injustice. In his heart, in his heart, a man plans his course, but the Lord determines his steps. Yeah. So again, when our hearts and our plans are rooted in God, we can be reassured. All right. So I'll keep going here. So looking at verse 10 in chapter 16. Again, I'll read over you for a few verses. The lips of the king speak as an oracle, and his mouth should not betray justice. Honest scales and balances are from the Lord. All the weight in the bag are of his making. Kings detest wrongdoing, for a throne is established through righteousness. Kings take pleasure in honest lips. They value a man who speaks the truth. A king's wrath is a messenger of death, but a wise man will appease it. When a king's face brightens, it means life. His favor is like a rain cloud in spring. How much better to get wisdom than gold, to choose understanding rather than silver. Okay, so I'll pause here. Sometimes I make jokes that I'm a recovering people pleaser, and I know for a few that might be a challenge that they can relate to. And it can show up in all forms. Trying to give an image of success, trying to make others happy, trying to make our bosses happy. Trying to please people and meet the standards of success that we see on Earth. It can feel like we're on a continuous roundabout. So the verses that I just read, I found that reassuring uh, because really the goal is to please God, and there's a lot of reward and benefit for that. So when people are not aligned to our beliefs or our boundaries or what we need, we know that God is there for us. And getting that wisdom, pleasing God, it's better than silver or gold. All right. So for the next part that I'll go through, I'll ask Elise to put a list of qualities into the chat. When I was reading this next section, there are a number of qualities that stood out. So if any of the words resonate with you when I'm reading the next part, I encourage you can connect with them, highlight them, or feel free to write them in the chat. So I thought there was just so many jewels in there. So I'll go through the list really quickly. Discernment, pleasant words, heed instruction, understanding, healing, peace and quiet, inheritance, use of silence, thinking before speaking, a cheerful heart, patience, slow to anger, knowledge, restraint, pride, joy, discernment, and integrity. So again, those are some of the qualities I was able to pick out. If you're able to hear other qualities as well, yeah, I'd love to see the chat just come alive with qualities encouraged by God. All right. So I'm going from verse 17, chapter 16, verse 17. The highway of the upright avoids evil. He who guards his way guards his life. Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. Better to be lowly in spirit and among the oppressed than to share plunder with the proud. Whoever gives heed to instruction prospers, and blessed is he who trusts in the Lord. The wise in heart are called discerning, and pleasant words promote instruction. Understanding is a fountain of life to those who have it, but folly brings punishment to fools. A wise man's heart guides his mouth, and his lips promote instruction. Pleasant words are a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones. There is a way that seems right to a man, but in the end is to death. The laborer's appetite works for him, and his hunger drives him on. A scoundrel plots evil, and his speech is like a scorching fire. A perverse man stirs up dissension, and gossip separates close friends. A violent man entices his neighbor and leads him down a path that is not good. He who winks with his eye is plotting perversity. He who punishes his lips is bent on evil. Gray hair is a crown of splendor. It is attained by a righteous life. Better a patient man than a warrior, a man who controls his temper than one who takes a city. The lot is cast into the lap, but it is every decision from the Lord. All right, so I'm seeing a few words in the chat. Yeah, and just encourage you if anything connects with you or stands out, feel free to add it to the chat, or you can just note it beside you. There are a couple of parts that I did want to highlight. Speaking to perverse, I wasn't quite sure what perverse meant in this context. So perverse here, really, it's someone who intentionally stirs up conflict or creates arguments or disagreement amongst people. So that idea of purposefully stirring conflict, I guess some might say getting the drama going. So someone who encourages that, that's linked with perverse here. And then gossip, of course, spreading the rumors or private information, which can break down trust and friendships. And I do admit this is a bit more personal. I love the reference to gray hair. So for everyone on the call rocking that gray hair, God sees you. It's linking to wisdom and that strength of character that's attained through authenticity and time and experience. All right, so I'll look at the time. Okay, I still have some. I need to look at the time, so I'll try to stay focused here. All right, so chapter 17. Uh, There are a number of metaphors here. And of course, I love poetry and notice the metaphors. And again, if there's a metaphors that connect with you, the idea is that it helps to bring a bit more feeling and understanding to the word. So I'll read chapter 17. Better a dry crust with peace and quiet than a house full of feasting with strife. A wise servant will rule over a disgraceful son and will share the inheritance as one of the brothers. The crucible for silver and the furnace for gold, but the Lord tests the heart. So I'll stop there because I actually wasn't sure what crucible meant. So when I looked it up, a crucible is a ceramic or metal container that is used to melt metal to create other substances and put in different shapes. And then the furnace for gold, very similar. It represents how gold is melted and shaped into different forms. So the process of refining gold and silver is often used as an analogy for spiritual growth and how God reshapes our heart and our spirit. So it signifies that sometimes high temperatures and the intensity and pressure, the trials of life, are one of the things that help to test and purify a person's faith. So it reminded me of something that my dad used to say. Joseph was thrown in the well before he became the king of Egypt. So those trials and those experiences that seem insurmountable and really difficult to overcome, they actually help to shape our spirit and our growth. And the development, again, it's more valuable than silver and gold. All right, so I will keep going here. Chapter 17, verse 4. A wicked man listens to evil lips. A liar pays attention to a malicious tongue. He who mocks the poor shows contempt for their maker. Whoever gloats over disaster will not go unpunished. Children's children are a crown to the aged, and parents are the pride of their children. Arrogant lips are unsuited to a fool. How much worse lying lips to a ruler? A bribe is a charm for the one who gives it. Wherever he turns, he succeeds. So I'll pause there again for a moment. That part about the bribe, I was a little curious as well, because a bribe is a charm to the one who gives it. So what is meant by that? A charm is often linked with magic. So a bribe can feel magical. For the person who's giving that bribe, it can feel as if they're gaining success and they're getting what they want. However, with bribes, you have to often keep continuing to give bribes in order to maintain that goal of the bribe. And it also has a correcting effect too. If someone receives a bribe, they might be more prone to taking bribes and shortcuts. So that's the idea of wherever he turns, he succeeds. It's a deceptive type of success when accepting bribes. All right, so I'll continue in chapter 17. He who covers, sorry, chapter 17, verse 9. He who covers over an offense promotes love, but whoever keeps the matter separates close friends. A rebuke impresses a man of discernment more than 100 lashes of fool. An evil man is bent only on rebellion. A merciless official will be sent against him. Better to meet a bear robbed of her cubs than a fool in his folly. If a man pays back evil for good, evil will never leave his house. Starting a quarrel is like breaching a dam, so drop the matter before a dispute breaks out. Acquitting the guilty and condemning the innocent, the Lord detests them both. Of what use is money in the hand of a fool, since he has no desire to get wisdom? A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. A man lacking in judgment strikes hands in pledge and puts up security for his neighbor. He who loves to quarrel loves sin. He who builds a high gate invites destruction. Okay, so I'll pause there. And I'll share another story with you. Uh, and when going through this, it reminded me of a time when I was in school. I had two roommates, and during the week, there's a couple days where we had morning classes at the same time. And on those days, we decided to leave the house together. So every time before we left our apartment, there would be an argument of some sort. And it was frustrating because we just couldn't figure out what the argument was about. And I think we had, without realizing it, we had chapter 17, verse 14 on our hearts. Starting a quarrel is like breaching a dam, so drop the matter before a dispute breaks out. We didn't want to open up that dam. We wanted to make sure that we addressed what was happening. So one morning, I decided to exercise some patience. I thought, okay, I'm going to get up. I'm going to be very patient. I'm going to hold my tongue and just try to observe what's happening. So this is what I was. My first roommate, she would get up. Her hair was perfect, her outfit well put together, and she was literally singing. From what I recall, I think she was even singing The Sound of Music. So for those who know that, she had kind of a fake opera voice, singing The Sound of Music, just kind of floating out of the room. So me, I was somewhere in the middle. I wasn't really happy or unhappy to be awake. I was uh, business as usual. Yeah, I realize I'm even doing it now where I'm watching the time. I was up, trying to be efficient, got showered, dressed, ready to go. So my third roommate, uh, she was the last to leave the room because she had to hit the snooze button on her clock several times. So for those that remember those digital alarm clocks, you really had to smack the clock really hard to hit that snooze button. So she would do that a few times, and just to get the few extra minutes of sleep. Then eventually she kind of stumbled out of the room, grumbled something about the sun being too bright, and then we met in the kitchen. So it was in that moment where I realized just how different we were when we got up in the morning. And it seemed uh, just having such different approaches to something that seemed as ordinary and even to a degree simple as getting up in the morning. It was something I would not have normally noticed. So in that moment, I had to position my heart to some of the qualities of God in order to see what we weren't able to see. So, and I realized as well how attached I was to my way of doing things. It's something I didn't notice before. So, long story short, eventually we were able to talk to each other. And my roommate who came out of the blowing, she noticed that I had shifted how I was acting in the morning. So sometimes when we shift our hearts to God, it is noticed. Uh, anyway, long story short, we were able to talk and we were able to find humorous ways to press our different approaches. All right, so I will read a little bit more. And I apologize, I kind of lost what's in the Bible, so I will keep going where I could pick up here. So I believe at verse 21. To have a fool for a son brings grief. There is no joy for the father of a fool. A cheerful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. A wicked man accepts a bribe in secret to pervert the course of justice. A discerning man keeps wisdom in view, but a fool's eyes wander to the ends of the earth. A foolish son brings grief to his father and bitterness to the one who bore him. It is not good to punish an innocent man or to flog officials for their integrity. A man of knowledge uses words with restraint, and a man of understanding is even tempered. Even a fool is thought wise if he keeps silent, and discerning if he holds his tongue. Right? So this brings me to the question for the morning. So we went through and looked at the list of qualities. If there was one that resonated with you, in a sense, I'd love to hear more about that. And the question for today is think of a moment where God spoke to your heart. Which qualities were you able to apply to that situation? So I realized, we had different temperaments, introverts, extroverts. So if you didn't want to speak and you just wanted to type that word that connected with you, please feel free to do so. If you've got a story to share where you felt you were able to connect to some of those qualities, and if you want to expand more on that, would love to hear from you. And that's all I have for this morning.
One to the two and two to the three. Let the world see the Holy Trinity.
Up early in the morning, Heart.Strong family, faithfully talking with the Almighty. He walks with me through storms and tears, my doubts and fears.